Welcome to another March Madness edition of the Friday Sports Buzz. John Lewis along with Nick Coffey from the CardinalConnect.com. A lot to talk about, an historic day in the NCAA. So if your brackets didn't bust yesterday, they're definitely busted today.
Absolutely. Yesterday it somewhat looked like an average day. Not a whole lot of big upsets, but today was absolutely different.
All right, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about U of L and UK's next NCAA matchups. But first, we're going to talk about March down at Rupp Arena, and that is the Sweet 16 quarterfinals today of the Sweet 16. Number 1 Trinity took on Clark County today, and Trinity, without juniors Daryl Hicks and James Quick, they sat out one game with a suspension. It didn't really matter. Nathan Dudney had 25 points, 8 rebounds. Trinity wins 62-39. They are in the state semis for the first time. They will play Pulaski Southwestern. That is at 10 o'clock in the morning. The other quarterfinal now, it was Oldham County versus Knott County Central. Looked like a Big East score, but when all was said and done, Oldham County wins. How about this? 36-34. Jacob Kopp led the Colonels. He was the leading scorer with 9 points. Oldham County plays Scott County, Nick, at 11:30 in that other semi.
Should be a great day for high school basketball, and that's, having to play 2 games in one day is tough, but it just makes it what it is. It's a historic tournament. But we talked about before we went on air is how for the first time in a long time you didn't have a Jefferson County public school representing in the state tournament, but you've got a little bit of a local flavor with both Trinity and Oldham County now playing. So we'll be pulling for those 2 teams.
What does that speak to Trinity's strength when they go in there? They don't use their 2 juniors, their really star juniors, and they still win as big as they did.
Depth. And I think it was not last time I was on the show, but the time before we talked about how good Trinity was. Is they've just got so many different weapons. Different guy can hurt you. And one guy that on their team, and I will butcher his last name, is Nathan Dudney. You tell me. Dudney. Yeah. He is a really tough player. Yeah. He's committed and he's signed to Boston. Not a lot of people talk about him because you got James Quick, who's the football star, and he plays basketball as well. You've got some other guys, a kid named Saxton, who's a really good shooter for them. But Dudney, he's a huge part. I think today he was the best player in Rupp Arena. He's a very talented player.
Yeah, we certainly heard his name quite a bit. He maybe gets overshadowed, but he was able to get into the spotlight today. If you want to get in on the conversation, call us on the Goomer & Company Buzz line, 964-2121. I have a feeling a lot of people will want to talk about those U of L Cardinals.
I hope so.
As we look back at that Davidson game, were you one of the guys that, when U of L went into this game against Davidson, were you optimistic? Were you hopeful? I mean, what was your feeling going into that game?
I was trying my best to stay optimistic, but I was nervous. I was very nervous, and it was just the thought. I didn't even want to process the thought of potentially losing in the first round again. And I said it not in fear, but I thought Davidson was a tougher first round opponent than Morehead State. I really did think that. I just thought matchup wise they can give teams some trouble. The fact that they beat Kansas really kind of made me worry. But I didn't. I do a radio show here in town on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I do try to prepare for that show. And I was not going to prepare to do a show on Thursday and them coming off a loss because I couldn't imagine the reaction. But I was nervous, but I think getting that the first round monkey off their back now because I think they played a little bit tight and they didn't play their best game, but the fact they were able to just get past that first game, hopefully they can loosen up and we can see the same team we saw in Madison Square Garden last week.
Next up for them, they take on the 5th seed New Mexico. I felt like I was on that Long Beach State bandwagon, which really hosed my brackets, but I thought that would be a tougher matchup, even though Louisville had already beaten Long Beach State. That was a game in, I think, November or December. Those games, to me, don't really count when you get into March. But they play New Mexico. Which matchup would you have rather have seen?
I think New Mexico is a better team overall, but realistically, I looked at it, maybe this just me being Homer, but I thought when Louisville left New York City, I thought first 2 rounds, Sweet 16-wise, the seed that they're going to get, it didn't really matter who those teams were. It mattered which Louisville team showed up, and I still think that. I think Louisville's a better team than both Long Beach and New Mexico. But I've said it all week that I would rather play Long Beach because I didn't think they were as good of a team. But now looking back, I look forward to New Mexico, and they've got some good wins. This is one of their best teams in school history. But the thought of playing Casper Ware and those guys again, now I look back and I'm actually kind of glad that they weren't able to win because I think New Mexico, I'll be the guy that curses it. I'll be so confident and they'll come out and lose tomorrow. But I really like the matchup. I think they like to play the same kind of style. They're a good team. They've got some good players, but I think the style they want to play is going to favor Louisville.
You had some interesting stats on the CardinalConnect.com about New Mexico and how they played 1 through 25 and 25 through 50. Kind of recap that for us and tell us what New Mexico has done against some of those better teams.
Yeah, their conference, the Mountain West, is it doesn't get a lot of credit, especially just on the other side of the country here. But
Sure.
they put as many teams in the NCAA tournament as the SEC did. They had UNLV, which they've already lost. San Diego
Right.
State's already lost too. And
Another team that I was on, but
exactly.
lost in the first round.
I was with you, John. And they had 4 wins. They beat both San Diego State and UNLV twice this year, which those are 4 pretty solid wins at the time. They were, at least. Now both those teams are not in the tournament, so it makes Louisville fans feel more confident. But outside of those wins, they haven't really played a really tough schedule. Their out-of-conference schedule wasn't all that tough. They lost to a couple of teams that are just not good. I mean, one loss they had was recent, which stands out to me because I think you can tell. I agree. November losses don't stand out. They don't mean a whole lot. You're more than likely you have a different team now than you did at that point. But they lost to TCU by 19 points just at the very end of it, and we're talking maybe 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So that's a loss that stands out to me. That just shows they're vulnerable. They can come out and they can, if they don't play their best game, they can get beat by a lot of teams. And TCU is one of the worst teams in college basketball this year, and to lose by 19. Not saying it's going to happen tomorrow, but it just lets you know that they weren't nearly as tested. I think Davidson, their win against Kansas is more impressive to me than anything that New Mexico's done all season.
Yeah. 9:40. Our time, Louisville time, on TBS. It's New Mexico and Louisville. The time schedule out there, I mean, I guess it plays a little bit of havoc with an Eastern time zone team. What do you think Rick Pitino has done? Do you think he's tried to keep his team on an Eastern time zone schedule to get them acclimated to what they're having to play out there?
Coach Pitino was really, optimistic, upbeat about the draw that they got, and I know I think the seed-wise they were finding the draw he's okay with, but I know for a fact that the staff did not want to go out west because they felt that last year's results in the tournament had a little bit to do with that. But I think the fact that they've been there now since Tuesday, that they've adjusted. I think they're on West Coast time. I really do. I think that he's letting those guys just adjust to that time, know that you're going to play early, and I think that's the right thing to do. But it's such a difference because you had the early game on Thursday. Now you're going to be playing. It could be 10 o'clock depending on how those games before happen.
That's true.
And I think playing later at night, when you look at what they did in the Big East tournament, I think that's, recently that's been a benefit for them. So hopefully they can keep that going. But it's not going to get much easier because if they're able to get past this next round, they're going to be in Phoenix, which is the same time zone. So.
Well, it's funny. My radio partner, Handsome Jimmy, he was completely optimistic and confident about the Davidson game, as he is about New Mexico. But I think the majority of U of L fans I talked to, they were hesitant to go ahead and advance Louisville. But now they feel a lot more confident, even though they're playing a higher seed and playing New Mexico.
I feel, I'm on that same boat, but then again, I don't want to be the guy that's just too, everybody just assumes that as long as they didn't lose in the first round, they're going to keep playing well. This is a team that they come out and they execute and they play their style of basketball, they're dangerous. But if they come out, if any game's going to be played in the 40s and 50s, they could get beat by a lot of teams. And the one thing that I think works in Louisville's favor is New Mexico's not a team that wants to play that style. They don't want to hold the ball. They have some athletes, they want to run up and down the court, and they've got a really good player in Drew Gordon that could give Louisville some trouble. But overall, top to bottom, I think that where New Mexico does lag is at the point guard. They do turn the ball over quite a bit for a team that's won this many games. So I'm hoping that Russ Smith and Peyton Siva can expose that a little bit.
Before we head to the break, let's talk about what's acceptable for this Louisville team if you're a Louisville fan. Is going to the Sweet 16 acceptable? Is an Elite 8 what you have to have, a Final Four appearance? What is acceptable for this team, especially after the last couple of years?
That's the question that I've been asking myself since the Big East tournament, because I think going in there you just thought if they can win a couple games, and one game in the Big East tournament, maybe one game in the NCAA tournament, you'd be okay. But then you saw the team kind of peak and get better. So now your expectations have changed a little bit. And then you look at the other teams that are doing what they're doing in the tournament today, these teams that are knocking off juggernauts and Duke and Missouri. So now I think if they can win and get one win here in the Sweet 16, I think I would be satisfied, but it doesn't mean I don't think they can't go farther.
All right, it'd be interesting, especially now with how the brackets are starting to shape up. Some of these doors are opening for a lot of teams, not just UK and U of L. And we're going to talk about UK on the other side of this break. If you want to get in on the conversation, call our Goomer Company Buzz line, 964-2121. You're watching the Friday Sports Buzz here from the iTech Studios.
Join the club at Sam Swope Auto Group. When you service a vehicle at any Sam Swope dealership, you automatically become a Service VIP Rewards member. You get member pricing on parts and service, lost key return, and emergency roadside assistance. Plus, you can earn points that qualify you for discounts on your next vehicle purchase, up to $2,500. The best part is becoming a member is free. Become a member today at any Sam Swope dealership. Nobody walks away because everybody saves.
I mean, it was so bad I would wake myself up.
I've tried everything.
Estimates suggest that as many as 73 million people in the U.S. have a snoring problem. What a shame, when the solution is so easy. Pure Sleep. Co-inventor Dr. Douglas Fenton explains how Pure Sleep works.
Snoring occurs when your airway relaxes and the tissue in your throat vibrates. Pure Sleep uses a technique called mandibular repositioning, which holds your jaw forward, gently opening the airway to stop your snoring.
The first night he used Pure Sleep, he stopped snoring.
Pure Sleep worked for us the very first night.
Pure Sleep is only 2 payments of $29.95 plus shipping and handling. If you're not satisfied for any reason, return it within 30 days for a full refund, including shipping and handling both ways.
Call 1-800-220-2933. That's 1-800-220-2933. Call now.
Back here in our iTex studios, you're watching the Friday Sports Buzz. John Lewis along with Nick Coffey from the CardinalConnect.com. You can check out his work there. Also on Tuesdays and Thursdays on 1450 The Sports Buzz from 6 to 7. It's the Cardinal Connection on there.
Yes, sir.
And you talk about all things U of L, but also talk about a lot of other things, in sports, entertainment, all kinds of things, right?
We try to mix it up a little bit.
All right, you and Rob Jones on there do a great job. You probably every once in a while maybe touch on what's going on with Kentucky, right? With UK?
Yeah, we do.
All right, well, you're going to right now, so get ready.
All right, man.
Well, when you're the overall #1 seed, you think that you would kind of get the benefit of a lot of things. And I think Kentucky certainly got the benefit. They get to play at, they played the play-in winner, which was Western Kentucky. Well, I think a lot of people wanted to see. They get to play close to home at the Yum Center. But I feel like if you look at what they have to play, looking down that whole bracket, they had to play the winner of Iowa State and Connecticut. It ended up being Iowa State. I still think that's going to be a tough matchup. Assuming they win that and Indiana beats VCU, they have to play a team that's beaten them already. Then we thought, well, then they would have to play Duke, but Duke did us all a favor, unless you are a Duke fan. I doubt there are too many out there who got upset by Lehigh tonight. Being the overall #1 seed has its privileges, but I think UK got maybe a tougher draw than an overall #1 has gotten in a while.
I think from as far as 8 and 9 seeds go, those are two tough teams. UConn is just as talented as anybody in the country, but they've been they're one of the most puzzling teams I've seen all season.
No kidding.
Makes no sense why you get what you get, the results. But Iowa State's a team that if Kentucky plays a good game and executes well, there's not any their good day, nobody could beat them. I mean, and I believe that. I don't like saying that, but I believe that.
Right.
But Iowa State's a team that's going to have a lot to play for. They're dangerous. I don't see them giving Kentucky too much trouble. They have guys that can shoot. They've got a couple of guys that can knock it down. Royce White is a really tough matchup. He can pass really well. He's just a tough player. But then Chris Allen, the transfer from Michigan State, he's a guy who stands out to me. He's been to a Final Four before. He knocked out Louisville in the Elite 8 in 2009. I'm not a big fan of his, but I'm familiar with him. He's a tough guard. Iowa State's a team, when they shoot well, they're dangerous. They defend well. They got a really good coach in Coach Hoiberg. I think he's a guy that he's in his hometown school now, but I think he'll be a hot commodity whenever other jobs open up.
Yeah, some of us old guys remember when he played there, and he was the mayor. I mean, that guy was a guy who he won a lot of fans back in the 90s.
He's done a really good job coaching as well. I didn't expect the results as quick.
Yeah, he's got a couple of good wins under his belt so far. They beat Kansas. Iowa State beat Kansas. Iowa State ended the regular season with a win over Baylor. You mentioned Royce White, who was actually a UK recruit at one time, and he was almost signed, sealed, and delivered to Kentucky. Then he said he had a son on the way, couldn't get on the plane, ended up staying at Iowa State. Calipari said no hard feelings, that was fine, he had to do what was best for him. We all love a storyline, but I don't know that plays a major part into what Royce White or Iowa State will do with Kentucky. I think it comes up to matchups, and as you said, can that team match up with Kentucky?
Talent-wise, I don't think they're even on the same level. No. But, of course, I don't think some of the teams that's given Kentucky trouble this year are. I mean, Kentucky is, I thought the last game of the regular season when they played Florida at Florida, that looked like a team that wasn't going to be contested with. It was sickening. I had to turn it off. But they looked really good. Yeah. And I thought in the SEC tournament, they won. I mean, keep in mind, they won 2 games. They beat Auburn and Florida. Right. But they didn't look, not Auburn, LSU and Florida, but they didn't look like the Kentucky team against Vanderbilt. They just didn't look the same. In Western Kentucky, I don't think they were, obviously, you played at the level of your competition somewhat, especially with so much differences in those 2 teams. Yeah. But they just haven't looked to have that killer instinct. Terrence Jones has played better, but it seems like since he's came on, the team has kind of not executed all in one there. But when they play when they play their best game, nobody can beat them. But they've shown the one thing that I think a lot of people looked at that loss, and it motivated Kentucky, and I would never want to be the team to have to play them coming off a loss like Western Kentucky did. Right. But it also showed that they can be beaten, and I don't think anybody fears them as much as they did before that loss happened, and I mean that. I don't think it made them I don't think it made them a less better team, but I think it showed you that they can be beaten. And I think, but with that being said, every team going in from here on out, that's their Super Bowl. They want to beat Kentucky because it's going to, I mean, they look, especially when they see what Lehigh did today and Norfolk State did, it's just going to give them motivation.
Royce White, leading scorer, averaged 13 points, had 15 points, 13 rebounds against UConn. Does that speak more to what Royce White can do or what UConn can't do? UConn looked like a team that didn't really want to be there.
A little bit of both. I mean, you had a lot of guys, again, when Louisville played UConn earlier this season at the Yum Center, won by nearly 30 points, and you had Jared Swopshire out there dunking on people and hitting threes, so maybe it goes both ways. But, he's a talented player, but one thing about him is that he doesn't shoot very well. He's a guy that he can create plays, he can handle the ball, but he doesn't have much of a jump shot, and it's not going to be as easy getting off shots underneath the rim when Anthony Davis is down there. So I think you're really going to find a lot out about Royce White tomorrow night.
UK playing at the Yum Center. I know they still have that Cardinal on there. Is it killing you U of L fans to see UK playing at home?
Not as much as I thought it would. The original thought of it was tough, but overall it hasn't been too bad. And the best thing is that all teams, I think it's 8 teams that in 2 different regions, 4 in each region, are going to have the chance to play their first two games there in the tournament. And I've heard from all fan bases just on Twitter, and some people. I got an email from an Iowa State fan who was just could not stop talking about how nice the place was, and that it was the best place to go to an NCAA tournament game. So, it's seeing Kentucky play there and it pretty much be a home game is rough, but, what are you going to do?
Well, it was interesting. I saw there was a Colorado State fan who he said he felt like the Yum Center was better than the Pepsi Center where the Denver Nuggets played. And I don't disagree. I mean, and I'm sure you're the same way. I've been to a lot of NBA arenas, and usually for NCAA events. I have yet to go to an arena, and I'm not saying this just because I'm in Louisville. I have yet to go into an arena that tops the Yum Center right now.
I think until another city decides to build another arena, that's absolutely true. And I didn't up until this year I hadn't been able to get out and see other places, and not that other places are just dumps, but Yum Center is state of the art. It's unreal, and I think people are going to find that. I don't think it's got the size. It doesn't seat as many people to maybe host a Final Four, and the city probably couldn't. Right. I think the city could do it, but it doesn't seat that many people. But wouldn't surprise me to see them get maybe host Sweet 16 and Elite 8 down the road.
Yeah, I think that will happen sooner or later. But yeah, with the championship game, or Final Four, they want the dome places.
Exactly.
Well, the good thing for you though is UK only has one more game there, and then they'll be out of town.
Exactly.
And you'll be happy. All right, we're going to talk more NCAA. We'll talk a little Division II, maybe in some NFL. We'll take your calls here on the Goomer & Company Buzzline 964-2121. You're watching the Friday Sports Buzz.
Pimp out your ride at Smart Shoppers, 4200 Produce Road. That's Smart Shoppers, 4200 Produce Road to pimp out your ride. They are open Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. They are the largest car audio dealer in the city of Louisville. No better place for paint or body work in the city than Smart Shoppers. You need rims, stereos, amps, paint, anything you need. Call 964-6652 or go to smartshoppers.com. That's Smart Shoppers, 964-6652.
Hi, I'm Jim Weeks. At MaxCare, no project is too big. We have the capabilities to handle the smallest residential project to the largest commercial undertaking. We even clean big houses like this one. And everyone has been abuzz about our amazing 4 areas for $99 special. We want to let everyone know that MaxCare also cleans upholstery, ceramic tile, and air ducts. We also install and refinish hardwood floors dust-free. MaxCare, locally owned and family operated. Give us a call, 636-4629.
Hoffman, Stigger & Hughes is your hometown law firm. We invite you to help us help the Lord's Kitchen, feeding area families since 1988. When you like us on Facebook, we will donate $1 to the Lord's Kitchen. Like us and help feed our community.
You never know when, but thieves can steal your identity.
You know, I can save you 15% today if you open up a charge card account with us.
You just read my mind.
Just one piece of information, and they can steal your credit and ruin your reputation. You need LifeLock, relentlessly protecting your personal information to help stop the crooks before your identity is stolen. Credit monitoring only tells you after you've been attacked, but LifeLock's advanced ID alert system directly notifies you, protecting your identity before you become a victim. No one can stop all identity theft. That's why you need the security of our $1 million service guarantee. Call now to try LifeLock risk-free for a full 60 days. If you're not completely satisfied, you won't pay a cent. Act now and get this document shredder at $29 value free.
Call 1-800-309-4789 to try LifeLock risk-free for a full 60 days. Use promo code NORISK. Plus, get your free document shredder. Call 1-800-309-4789 now. LifeLock service guarantee cannot be offered to residents of New York.
We now have a new feature on our website. It's auctions. You can bid for even better prices on all the great items we have here at 21 Live. Go to our website, shop21live.com.
21 Live.
Wrapping things up here on the Friday Sports Buzz. John Lewis along with Nick Coffey from the CardinalConnect.com. You can also listen to him on Tuesdays and Thursdays. He and Rob Jones on 1450 The Sports Buzz from 6 to 7 Tuesdays and Thursdays, talking about all things U of L. Let's talk about the NCAA tournament. You know, as you said yesterday, it was kind of, if you went chalk, you were okay for the most part, other than the
UNLV and
VCU.
Yeah.
But today, not so much.
Not at all.
Two number 2 seeds went down today, one being Duke against Lehigh. I mean, that was just incredible. I don't know if you were able to see any of the game, but Lehigh led for all, I saw most of the second half. They led for pretty much all the second half.
The odd thing about the Lehigh game is they just looked like the better team. It wasn't as if Duke was just playing awful basketball. Right. Lehigh just looked like the better team. They've got a really good player with a point guard as one of the better players, one of the better mid-major players in the country, and they just looked like the better team. The one game I had, I don't even want to talk about my bracket. It's an embarrassment.
They're all shot
But
now.
Missouri was a team, and one of that I felt that I had them going to the national championship game, and I thought they're so strong at the guard position. They give a lot of teams matchup problems, but they're also just as vulnerable for a matchup problem. Yeah. And you look at how many guards they play, and I think they just kind of got out physical today. They didn't play a great game, but credit to Norfolk for taking advantage of that.
Yeah, they absolutely did. I mean, that team just played maybe above their head, but as you mentioned with Lehigh, that team really looked like the better team.
Really shocked me.
And there were times, late in that second half, I just knew Duke was going to start pulling it out because it looked like they were ready to go. They were making those Duke kind of shots, getting fouled on three-pointers, hitting a couple of the free throws. We have a wasp in the studio. But Lehigh give them credit. I think a lot of other teams would not have been able to overcome those things.
I agree. That Lehigh game, I was just waiting for Duke to just eventually start hitting shots, but Lehigh hung tough. I don't know the numbers, how many seniors they have on the team, but they just looked like mentally they knew how to handle a lead. I know they were talked about in the preseason as being one of the better mid-major teams. I didn't hear from them after that because I think they took a couple of tough losses, but their team that let's see who do they match up with in the next round.
Lehigh will play the winner of Notre Dame and Xavier.
There's no reason why they can't beat Notre Dame. I mean, Notre Dame's not all that talented. They do play good basketball. They slow it down and make it tough. But talent-wise, they can match up, I think, with either of those teams.
All right, we're fans. We're allowed to keep looking ahead in the bracket.
Absolutely.
Let's say Lehigh wins that game against Notre Dame and Xavier. They'd play the winner of Colorado and Baylor. I believe that, yeah. And Baylor looked beatable, playing South Dakota State yesterday. I mean,
the Jackrabbits.
Yeah, I mean, that team. I mean, you know, Baylor looked like you could see areas where they need to improve to keep on going.
Baylor athletically is as good as anybody I've seen, but I don't think it's talked about enough that they haven't really beaten a lot of good teams. They've got a solid resume. They've kind of played down to their opponents at certain times this season. Scott Drews is done. I don't know what he's doing to get these kids to come down to Waco, Texas, but he's bringing them in. Yeah. They've got a lot of talent. I think them in a track meet kind of game, they could compete with some teams, but I think discipline-wise, you never really know what you're going to get. It would take, when you look at the rest of the bottom half of this South region, it would take a special performance for all of these teams left, in my opinion, to knock off Baylor, which, you know, they're going to benefit from that. But I think when you look at, Kentucky, if they get past Iowa State, not going to be a whole lot of competition until the Final Four.
True. There was so much talk this entire college basketball season about the parity of college basketball. A lot of times when we talk about that, we just mean that it's just down. And maybe it was. Maybe you didn't have the super team. We never saw the super team. You know, I think maybe you look at Kentucky. Kentucky was number 1. Syracuse being number 2. Of course, now without Fab Melo and all that, I mean, they struggled against UNC Asheville, 16 seed. But I think Kentucky was up here with the talent they had, and then it was just kind of everybody else. And anybody could beat anybody. We're starting to see that play out in the NCAA tournament. And now with these upsets, with Duke out, with Missouri out, is this as wide open as an NCAA tournament can be?
Hard to disagree. I mean, last year you had VCU and Butler make the Final Four. Butler made it the year before, which is just what we thought to be a fluke. When you go 2 years to the national championship game in a row, you're doing something right. And I thought just with those two teams making the Final Four last year, and UConn coming out of nowhere and turning it on like they did, there was a lot of parity, absolutely. But then you look at this season, I thought, you know, Kentucky, North Carolina, maybe Ohio State when they're playing good. Those are the elite level teams. Those are the teams that are just better than everybody. And I thought I expected some early upsets, but not to this magnitude with Duke and Missouri already being out. But it wouldn't surprise me to still see that maybe 3 number 1 seeds and a number 2 seed now make it to the Final Four. But from here on out, you know, who knows? Lehigh might be in the Elite 8. You never know.
Well, I mean, when Duke goes down to Lehigh, like I said, you can't rule anything out for the rest of the season. How about Bellarmine trying to defend that national title? They take on UA Huntsville, who's on a 20-game winning streak. The good thing for Bellarmine is they get to go to Northern Kentucky University to play. And you and I were talking off the air. I think Bellarmine right now, talk about wide open, Bellarmine is a team, and I agree with what you said. They're a team that I think could knock off some Division I talent right now.
Absolutely. They just play really good basketball. They have, they would match up with people and give them a lot of trouble. They remind me of a Davidson team a little bit, the way they play. And I think, you know, Davidson, had they shot a little better, they gave Louisville a lot more trouble. But I think Scotty Davenport, it would be nothing